10 minutes remaining in the session. Brian Patterson is P3 up 0.00. Richard Ogden is P12 up 0.01 on mediums. Announcer bot is active. The qualification session is at Sebring International Raceway in Sebring FL, USA. Caio Pacini from Brazil is P3 up 1.15 on softs. The qualifying session is now underway. Emmanuel Rusciusa from Italy is P2 up 0.23 on softs. Caio Pacini is P3 up 1.17. David Forsyth from Ireland is P4 up 0.07 on softs. Caio Pacini is P5 up 0.29. David Kelsall is P6 up 0.06 on softs. 5 minutes remaining in the session. San Markham from Zimbabwe is P1 with 100 kilos on softs. Best lap is a 1:59.238. Eric Bohm from Germany is P2 with 80 kilos on softs. Best lap is a 1:59.540. 0.302 behind the leader. Kyo Paisani is P5 up 0.00. Brian Patterson is P9 on softs. Best lap is a 3:21.097. 1:21.859 behind the leader. David Forsyth is P4. Best lap is a 2:01.786. 2.548 behind the leader. David Kelsall is provisional pole with a 2:03.923. David Kelsall is P6 up 0.00. San Markham is P1 up 0.00 with 100 kilos. David Kelsall is P6 up 0.10. San Markham is P1 up 0.01. Daniel Hand from Germany is P12 on softs. Dara Atkinson from Ireland is P13 up 0.01 on softs. San Markham is P1 up 0.06. Mark Scott from Norway is P10 up 0.44 on softs. Rene Robertson is provisional pole with a 2:01.142. David Forsyth is P5 up 0.23. Daniel Hand is P11 up 0.02. Rene Robertson is P4 with 40 kilos on softs. Best lap is a 2:01.142. 1.904 behind the leader. Dara Atkinson is provisional pole with a 2:00.458. Dara Atkinson is P12 up 0.00. Best lap is a 2:00.458. 1.220 behind the leader. Rene Robertson is P5. Daniel Hunt is P12. Best lap is a 16:53.133. 14:53.895 behind the leader. Daniel Hunt improved his P6 with a 2:01.356. 2.118 behind the leader. Eric Bohm is P2. Kyo Paisani is P8. Best lap is a 2:01.802. 2.564 behind the leader. Eric Bohm is P2. Kyo Paisani is P8. Eric Bohm is P2 with 80 kilos. Emmanuel Russia user is P4 on mediums. Eric Bohm is P2. Kyo Paisani is P8. Eric Bohm is P2. Kyo Paisani is P8. Eric Bohm is P2. Emmanuel Russia user is P4 on hards. Eric Bohm is P2 on softs. David Forsyth is P7 on mediums. Eric Bohm is P2 with 80 kilos. The race session is at Sebring International Raceway in Sebring FL, USA. Rene Robertson is P1 with 40 kilos on mediums. Eric Bohm from Germany is P3 with 80 kilos on softs. Dara Atkinson from Ireland is P4 on mediums. John Astrup from New Zealand is P5 with 10 kilos on mediums. Glenn Field from United Kingdom is P6 on mediums. Brian Patterson is P7 on mediums. Daniel Hand from Germany is P8 on softs. Emanuele Rusciusa from Italy is P9 on hards. Alex Amara from Ireland is P10 on mediums. David Forsyth from Ireland is P11 on mediums. Caio Paisani from Brazil is P12 on softs. David Kelsall is P13 on mediums. Mark Scott from Norway is P14 on mediums. Richard Ogden is P15 on mediums. Juan Ramos from United States is P16 on softs. 30 minutes remaining in the session. Race start. San Marcon from Zimbabwe is P2 with 100 kilos on softs. Glenn Field is P7. Dara Atkinson is P4. Brian Patterson is P5. Eric Bohm is P3. Daniel Hand is P5. Glenn Field is P12. David Kelsall is P15. Glenn Field is P12. David Kelsall is P15. Alex Amara is P14. Immanuel Russia user is P9. Daniel Hand on lap 2 is P4, 0.5 seconds behind Eric Bone. Brian Patterson is P16. Daniel Hand is P4, 0.3 seconds behind Eric Bone. Glenn Field is P11, 0.2 seconds behind Richard Ogden. Daniel Hand on lap 2 is P4, 0.2 seconds behind Eric Bone. John Astrup is P9, 0.3 seconds behind Immanuel Russia user. Daniel Hand is P4, 0.4 seconds behind Eric Bone. John Astrup is P9, 0.3 seconds behind Immanuel Russia user. Daniel Hand is P4, 0.2 seconds behind Eric Bone. John Astrup is P9, 0.3 seconds behind Immanuel Russia user. Best lap is a 2:21.504. 14.340 off the fastest lap. Daniel Hand is P3, 0.2 seconds behind Rene Robertson. Immanuel Russia user is P8, 0.4 seconds ahead of John Astrup. Eric Bone is P4, 0.5 seconds behind Daniel Hand. Daniel Hand is P3, 0.3 seconds behind Rene Robertson. John Astrup is P8, 0.1 seconds behind Immanuel Russia user. 25 minutes remaining in the session. Eric Bone is P4, 0.3 seconds behind Daniel Hand. Daniel Hand is P3, 0.5 seconds behind Rene Robertson. Juan Ramos is P14, 4.8 seconds ahead of Brian Patterson. Daniel Hand is P3, 0.4 seconds behind Rene Robertson. David Forsyth is P11, 0.4 seconds behind Alex Amara. Daniel Hand is P3, 0.2 seconds behind Rene Robertson. Best lap is a 1:59.541. Juan Ramos entering the pits after 3 laps on softs is P16. David Kelsall is P12, 1.5 seconds ahead of Richard Ogden. Rene Robertson is P3, 0.4 seconds behind Daniel Hand. David Forsyth is P11, 0.2 seconds behind Alex Amara. Daniel Hand is P2, 0.6 seconds behind San Marcom. Mark Scott is P15. Daniel Hank is P2, 0.3 seconds behind San Marco. John Astrup is P7, 0.2 seconds behind Caio Paisani. Daniel Hank is P2, 0.2 seconds behind San Marco. John Astrup is P7, 0.4 seconds behind Caio Paisani. San Marco is P2, 0.2 seconds behind Daniel Hank. Caio Paisani is P7, 0.4 seconds behind John Astrup. San Marco is P2, 0.4 seconds behind Daniel Hank. Glenfield from United Kingdom is P8, 0.5 seconds behind Caio Paisani. San Marco is P2, 0.1 seconds behind Daniel Hank. Best lap is a 2:00.349. 0.808 of the fastest lap. Glenfield is P8, 0.2 seconds behind Caio Paisani. Daniel Hank is P2, 0.2 seconds behind San Marco. Richard Ogden is P13, 1.4 seconds ahead of David Kelsall. Eric Bohm is P4, 0.9 seconds behind Rene Robertson. Daniel Hank from Germany is P2, 0.2 seconds behind San Marco. 20 minutes remaining in the session. Glenfield is P7 battling John Astrup. Daniel Hank is P2, 0.2 seconds ahead of Rene Robertson. Richard Ogden is P14 on mediums, 0.3 seconds behind David Kelsall. Daniel Hank is P2, 0.3 seconds behind San Marco. John Astrup is P7, 0.3 seconds behind Glenfield. Daniel Hank is P2, 0.2 seconds behind San Marco. Glenfield on lap 6 is P6, 0.6 seconds ahead of John Astrup. Daniel Hank is P2, 0.2 seconds behind San Marco. Glenfield is P6, 0.6 seconds ahead of John Astrup. Daniel Hank on lap 6 is P2, 0.2 seconds behind San Marco. Brian Patterson is P12. Daniel Hank is P2 battling Rene Robertson. Kyle Casey is P8. Daniel Hank is P3, 0.5 seconds behind Rene Robertson. John Astrup is P7, 0.6 seconds behind Glenn Field. Daniel Hank is P3 on softs, 0.4 seconds behind Rene Robertson. David Kelsall on lap 6 is P15, 1.9 seconds behind Mark Scott. Daniel Hank is P3, 0.2 seconds behind Rene Robertson. Glenn Field is P6, 0.5 seconds ahead of John Astrup. Best lap is a 2:00.684. 1.143 of the fastest lap. David Kelsall entering the pits after 7 laps on mediums is P15. Daniel Hank is P3, 0.3 seconds behind Rene Robertson. Richard Ogden is P13. Daniel Hank is P3 on softs, 0.4 seconds behind Rene Robertson. Rene Robertson is P2 with 40 kilos battling Daniel Hank. John Astrup is P7, 0.2 seconds behind Glenn Field. 15 minutes remaining in the session. Daniel Hank is P3, 0.4 seconds behind Rene Robertson. Alex Amaro entering the pits after 7 laps on mediums is P10. Brian Patterson entering the pits after 7 laps on mediums is P12. Brian Patterson is P12. Kyle Payson on lap 8 is P8, 1.0 seconds ahead of Emmanuel Rushiuza. Alex Amaro is P11. Richard Ogden entering the pits after 7 laps on mediums is P13. Glenn Field is P7. Mark Scott is P13. Richard Ogden is P14. Emmanuel Rushiuza on lap 8 is P8, 0.5 seconds behind Kyle Payson. Richard Ogden is P14. Kyle Payson is P8, 1.3 seconds behind Emmanuel Rushiuza. Daniel Hank is P2, 1.4 seconds ahead of Rene Robertson. Kyle Payson entering the pits after 8 laps on softs is P8. Kyle Payson is P8, 1.4 seconds ahead of David Forsyth. John Astrup is P6 with 10 kilos. Glenfield entering the pits after 8 laps on mediums is P10. Glenfield is P10. John Astrup on lap 9 is P6, 4.0 seconds behind Eric Bohm. Daniel Hank is P2, 2.0 seconds ahead of Rene Robertson. Glenfield is P11, 2.7 seconds ahead of Mark Scott. Daniel Hank on lap 9 is P2, 1.7 seconds ahead of Rene Robertson. Sam Markham entering the pits after 9 laps on softs is P1. Sam Markham is P1, 3.1 seconds ahead of Daniel Hank. Daniel Hank entering the pits after 9 laps on softs is P2. Daniel Hank on lap 10 is P3, 2.1 seconds behind Rene Robertson. John Astrup on lap 9 is P6. Eric Bohm entering the pits after 9 laps on softs is P5. Eric Bohm is P5, 1.8 seconds behind Dara Atkinson. Best lap is a 2:00.373. 0.832 of the fastest lap. Sam Markham is P5, 1.0 seconds behind John Astrup. Eric Bohm is P6. Emmanuel Rushiuser entering the pits after 9 laps on hards is P7. Daniel Hank from Germany is P5, 4.4 seconds ahead of Eric Bohm. Emmanuel Rushiuser on lap 10 is P8 on mediums, 0.1 seconds behind David Forsyth. David Forsyth is P7. Richard Ogden is P13. Ten minutes remaining in the session. Mark Scott entering the pits after 9 laps on mediums is P11. Mark Scott is P11, 2.1 seconds ahead of Glenfield. John Astrup is P3. Mark Scott is P12 on softs. John Astrup entering the pits after 10 laps on mediums is P3. Rene Robertson on lap 11 is P1. Brian Patterson is P10 on mediums. Brian Patterson entering the pits after 3 laps on mediums is P11. John Astrup is P5, 0.2 seconds behind Eric Bohm. David Forsyth entering the pits after 10 laps on mediums is P7. David Forsyth is P7. Best lap is a 2:03.397. 3.856 of the fastest lap. John Astrup is P6. David Forsyth is P8. Kyle Payson is P14. Glenfield is P10. Mark Scott is P11, 4.8 seconds ahead of Richard Ogden. Dara Atkinson entering the pits after 11 laps on mediums is P2. Dara Atkinson is P2. Kyle Payson is P14. Dara Atkinson is P2, 3.4 seconds ahead of San Marco. Mark Scott is P11. Dara Atkinson is P4 on mediums, 1.2 seconds behind Daniel Hank. John Astrup is P6. Dara Atkinson on lap 12 is P4, 1.9 seconds behind Daniel Hank. Emmanuel Russia on lap 12 is P7. Mark Scott on lap 11 is P11. Rene Robertson entering the pits after 12 laps on mediums is P1. Rene Robertson is P1 with 40 kilos. Kyle Payson is P14. Rene Robertson is P1. Five minutes remaining in the session. Daniel Hank is P2, 2.2 seconds ahead of Rene Robertson. Dara Atkinson is P4, 1.8 seconds ahead of Eric Bone. Mark Scott is P11. Brian Patterson is P14. Mark Scott is P11. Brian Patterson is P14. Glenfield is P10, 0.5 seconds behind Alex Amaro. Eric Bone is P5 with 80 kilos, 0.5 seconds behind Dara Atkinson. Alex Amara is P10, 2.9 seconds behind Glenn Field. Eric Bohm is P5, 0.4 seconds behind Dara Atkinson. Brian Patterson is P14. Eric Bohm is P5 with 80 kilos, 0.3 seconds behind Dara Atkinson. Brian Patterson is P14. Eric Bohm is P4, 1.7 seconds ahead of Dara Atkinson. Richard Ogden is P12 on mediums. Brian Patterson is P14. Kyle Paisani is P13. Brian Patterson is P14. Eric Bohm is P4 with 80 kilos, 2.8 seconds ahead of Dara Atkinson. Kyle Paisani is P13. Eric Bohm is P4, 2.5 seconds behind Rene Robertson. Brian Patterson is P14. Glenn Field is P9. Brian Patterson is P14. San Markham from Zimbabwe is P1, 2.9 seconds ahead of Daniel Han. Brian Patterson is P14. Best lap is a 2:03.374. 4.170 off the fastest lap. Daniel Hank on lap 16 is P2, 2.4 seconds behind San Marco. Brian Patterson on lap 11 is P14. Eric Bohm is P4, 0.5 seconds behind Rene Robertson. Brian Patterson is P14. San Markham is P1 on softs, 1.8 seconds ahead of Daniel Hank. The leader has just finished the race. San Markham finished P1. Daniel Hank finished P2. Kyle Payson finished P13. Rene Robertson finished P3. Eric Bohm finished P4. Dara Atkinson finished P5. Brian Patterson finished P14. John Astrup from New Zealand finished P6. Mark Scott is P11. Mark Scott finished P11. Emmanuel Rushiuser is P7. Emmanuel Rushiuser finished P7. Richard Ogden finished P12. David Forsyth finished P8. Glenn Field finished P9. Alex Amara finished P10. Eric Bohm from Germany finished P4. Kyle Payson finished P13. Kyle Payson finished P13. The race session is at Sebring International Raceway in Sebring FL, USA. David Forsyth from Ireland is P8 on mediums. Kyle Payson from Brazil is P11 on softs. Mark Scott from Norway is P12 on mediums. Richard Ogden is P13 on mediums. Sam Markham from Zimbabwe is P1 with 100 kilos on softs. Rene Robertson is P2 with 40 kilos on mediums. Eric Bohm from Germany is P3 with 80 kilos on softs. Dara Atkinson from Ireland is P4 on mediums. John Astrup from New Zealand is P5 with 10 kilos on mediums. Glenn Field from United Kingdom is P6 on mediums. Brian Patterson is P7 on softs. Daniel Handke from Germany is P8 on softs. Emanuele Rusciusa from Italy is P9 on mediums. Alex Amara from Ireland is P10 on softs. Alex Amara entering the pits is P10. Daniel Handke entering the pits is P8. Sam Markham entering the pits is P1. John Astrup is P5. 30 minutes remaining in the session. Race start. David Forsyth is P4. The race session is at Sebring International Raceway in Sebring FL, USA. Eric Bohm from Germany is P7 with 80 kilos on softs. John Astrup from New Zealand is P5 with 10 kilos on mediums. Sam Markham from Zimbabwe is P1 on softs. Rene Robertson is P2 with 40 kilos on mediums. Eric Bohm is P3. Dara Atkinson from Ireland is P4 on mediums. John Astrup is P5. Glenn Field from United Kingdom is P6 on mediums. Brian Patterson is P7 on softs. Daniel Handke from Germany is P8 on softs. Emanuele Rusciusa from Italy is P9 on mediums. Alex Amara from Ireland is P10 on softs. David Forsyth from Ireland is P11 on mediums. Caio Paisani from Brazil is P12 on mediums. Mark Scott from Norway is P13 on softs. Richard Ogden is P14 on hards. Sam Markham is P1 with 100 kilos. 30 minutes remaining in the session. Race start. Eric Bohm is P3. Rene Robertson is P2. John Astrup is P6. Rene Robertson is P3. Daniel Handke is P6. Glenn Field is P5. Eric Bohm is P2. Glenfield is P5. Emmanuel Rushiuser is P8. Glenfield is P6. Emmanuel Rushiuser is P8. Glenfield is P4 on mediums, 0.1 seconds ahead of Daniel Han. Brian Patterson is P7, 0.5 seconds behind Daniel Han. Glenfield is P5, 0.2 seconds ahead of Daniel Han. Daniel Han is P6, 0.1 seconds behind Dara Atkinson. Mark Scott is P12, 0.4 seconds behind David Forsyth. Dara Atkinson is P6, 0.5 seconds behind Daniel Han. Emmanuel Rushiuser is P8, 0.4 seconds behind Brian Patterson. Daniel Han from Germany is P5, 0.3 seconds behind Glenfield. Mark Scott is P12, 0.2 seconds behind David Forsyth. Glenfield is P5 battling Daniel Han. Brian Patterson on lap 2 is P7, 0.4 seconds behind Dara Atkinson. Glenfield is P5, 0.3 seconds behind Daniel Han. Dara Atkinson is P7, 0.1 seconds behind Brian Patterson. Brian Patterson is P6, 0.4 seconds ahead of Dara Atkinson. Richard Ogden is P14. Alex Amara is P10, 0.2 seconds behind Kyle Payson. 25 minutes remaining in the session. Mark Scott is P13, 1.1 seconds behind David Forsyth. Brian Patterson is P6, 0.8 seconds ahead of Dara Atkinson. John Astrup is P10 on mediums, 0.5 seconds behind Kyle Payson. Dara Atkinson is P7, 0.5 seconds behind Brian Patterson. John Astrup is P10, 0.3 seconds behind Kyle Payson. Sam Markham is P1, 1.6 seconds ahead of Eric Bohm. Emmanuel Russia user is P8, 0.8 seconds ahead of Kyle Payson. John Astrup is P9, 0.3 seconds behind Kyle Payson. Emmanuel Russia user is P13, 4.9 seconds behind Mark Scott. John Astrup is P9, 0.3 seconds behind Kyle Payson. Eric Bohm is P2, 1.7 seconds behind Sam Markham. Best lap is a 1:59.860. 0.837 of the fastest lap. Daniel Hand is P4, 0.5 seconds behind Rene Robertson. Best lap is a 1:59.023. Eric Bohm on lap 4 is P2, 2.2 seconds behind Sam Markham. Rene Robertson is P4 on mediums, 0.3 seconds behind Daniel Hand. John Astrup is P9, 0.3 seconds behind Kyle Payson. Best lap is a 2:01.481. 2.458 of the fastest lap. Rene Robertson is P4, 0.5 seconds behind Daniel Hand. Best lap is a 2:00.884. 1.861 of the fastest lap. John Astrup from New Zealand is P8, 0.2 seconds behind Kyle Payson. Daniel Hand is P3, 0.8 seconds ahead of Rene Robertson. John Astrup is P8 on mediums, 0.4 seconds behind Kyle Payson. Daniel Hand is P3, 2.5 seconds behind Eric Bohm. Kyle Payson is P7 on softs, 0.3 seconds behind Brian Patterson. Best lap is a 2:02.728. 3.705 of the fastest lap. Kyle Payson entering the pits after 5 laps on softs is P9. John Astrup is P6, 1.9 seconds ahead of Brian Patterson. Brian Patterson is P7, 2.1 seconds behind John Astrup. Best lap is a 2:00.726. 1.703 of the fastest lap. 20 minutes remaining in the session. Eric Bohm is P2, 1.7 seconds ahead of Daniel Hand. Richard Ogden is P13. Brian Patterson is P7, 3.5 seconds ahead of John Astrup. John Astrup entering the pits after 5 laps on mediums is P9. Glenn Field is P4, 3.8 seconds ahead of Dara Atkinson. Best lap is a 2:00.641. 1.618 of the fastest lap. Rene Robertson entering the pits after 5 laps on mediums is P14. Eric Bohm is P2, 0.5 seconds ahead of Daniel Hand. Rene Robertson on lap 5 is P14. Daniel Hand is P3, 0.5 seconds behind Eric Bohm. Eric Bohm is P2 on softs, 0.3 seconds ahead of Daniel Hahn. Rene Robertson is P14 on mediums. Mark Scott on lap 6 is P7, 2.3 seconds behind David Forsyth. Brian Patterson is P8, 0.2 seconds behind Mark Scott. Glenfield is P4, 3.2 seconds ahead of Dara Atkinson. Brian Patterson is P7 on softs, 1.1 seconds ahead of Mark Scott. Mark Scott from Norway is P8, 0.7 seconds behind Brian Patterson. Emmanuel Rushiuser is P10. John Astrup is P13. Rene Robertson is P12. John Astrup is P13 on softs. Brian Patterson is P7, 1.5 seconds ahead of Mark Scott. Daniel Hahn is P3, 1.4 seconds behind Eric Bone. Brian Patterson is P7, 0.9 seconds ahead of Mark Scott. "15 minutes remaining in the session. Mark Scott is P9, 0.8 seconds behind Alex Amara. Alex Amara entering the pits after 7 laps on softs is P8. Alex Amara is P8, 4.4 seconds ahead of Mark Scott. Mark Scott entering the pits after 7 laps on softs is P9. Emmanuel Rushiuser entering the pits after 7 laps on mediums is P10. Emmanuel Rushiuser is P10. Best lap is a 2:03.131. 4.108 off the fastest lap. John Astrup is P13. Alex Amara is P9. Mark Scott is P9. Best lap is a 2:03.620. 4.597 off the fastest lap. Richard Ogden entering the pits after 7 laps on hards is P11. Daniel Hahn is P3, 0.4 seconds behind Eric Bone. Richard Ogden is P11. Daniel Hahn entering the pits after 8 laps on softs is P3. Glenfield entering the pits after 8 laps on mediums is P4. Glenfield is P4, 3.8 seconds ahead of Dara Atkinson. John Astrup is P13. Daniel Hand from Germany is P4. Glenfield is P5. Brian Patterson entering the pits after 8 laps on softs is P7. Brian Patterson is P7. John Astrup is P13. Richard Ogden on lap 8 is P11. Brian Patterson is P7. Eric Bohm is P2, 3.9 seconds behind San Marco. Emmanuel Russia user entering the pits is P10. Emmanuel Russia user is P10. John Astrup is P13. San Marco entering the pits after 9 laps on softs is P1. San Marco is P1, 4.9 seconds ahead of Eric Bohm. Eric Bohm entering the pits after 9 laps on softs is P2. John Astrup from New Zealand is P13. Eric Bohm is P1 on softs. John Astrup is P13. Best lap is a 2:01.416. 2.393 of the fastest lap. San Marco is P2, 3.6 seconds ahead of Dara Atkinson. Emmanuel Russia user from Italy is P11. Eric Bohm is P4, 1.1 seconds behind Daniel Hand. Brian Patterson is P8, 0.3 seconds behind Alex Amaro. David Forsyth is P6. Mark Scott is P9, 0.2 seconds behind Alex Amaro. Remaining in the session. Rene Robertson is P12 with 40 kilos. Dara Atkinson is P1, 4.7 seconds ahead of San Marco. Daniel Hand from Germany is P3, 1.5 seconds behind San Marco. Emmanuel Russia user entering the pits is P11. Emmanuel Russia user is P11. John Astrup from New Zealand is P13. David Forsyth entering the pits after 10 laps on mediums is P6. David Forsyth is P6 on mediums. John Astrup is P13. David Forsyth is P6. Dara Atkinson is P1, 2.9 seconds ahead of San Marco. Daniel Hank is P3, 0.8 seconds behind San Marco. Rene Robertson is P11 with 40 kilos. John Astrup entering the pits after 4 laps on softs is P13. Daniel Hank is P3, 0.4 seconds behind San Marco. Dara Atkinson entering the pits after 11 laps on mediums is P1. Dara Atkinson is P1, 1.0 seconds ahead of Daniel Hank. John Astrup is P13 on mediums. Daniel Hank is P2, 0.3 seconds behind San Marco. Richard Ogden on lap 11 is P10. Daniel Hank is P2, 0.3 seconds behind San Marco. Rene Robertson entering the pits after 6 laps on mediums is P11. Rene Robertson on lap 10 is P11. John Astrup is P13 with 10 kilos. Rene Robertson is P11. Daniel Hank is P2, 0.5 seconds behind San Marco. Brian Patterson is P7. Daniel Hank is P2, 0.5 seconds behind San Marco. Mark Scott is P8, 0.1 seconds ahead of Alex Amaro. Daniel Hank is P2, 0.4 seconds behind San Marco. 5 minutes remaining in the session. Mark Scott on lap 12 is P9, 1.2 seconds behind Alex Amaro. Daniel Hank is P2, 0.4 seconds behind San Marco. Best lap is a 1:58.645. Dara Atkinson is P5 on softs, 1.2 seconds behind Glenn Field. Best lap is a 2:01.129. 2.484 of the fastest lap. Glenn Field is P4, 0.9 seconds ahead of Dara Atkinson. Daniel Hank is P2, 0.5 seconds behind San Marco. Glenn Field is P4, 0.6 seconds ahead of Dara Atkinson. Daniel Hank is P2, 0.3 seconds behind San Marco. Dara Atkinson is P5, 0.4 seconds behind Glenn Field. Glenn Field is P4, 0.4 seconds ahead of Dara Atkinson. Eric Bone is P2, 0.9 seconds ahead of San Marco. Dara Atkinson is P5, 0.4 seconds behind Glenn Field. San Marco from Zimbabwe is P3, 0.5 seconds behind Eric Bone. Dara Atkinson is P5, 0.5 seconds behind Glenn Field. San Marco is P3, 0.4 seconds behind Eric Bone. Daniel Hahn from Germany is P1, 2.7 seconds ahead of Eric Bone. San Marco is P2, 0.5 seconds behind Eric Bone. Dara Atkinson is P5, 0.3 seconds behind Glenn Field. San Marco is P2 on softs, 0.5 seconds behind Eric Bone. Dara Atkinson from Ireland is P5, 0.4 seconds behind Glenn Field. San Marco is P2, 0.2 seconds behind Eric Bone. Dara Atkinson is P5, 0.3 seconds behind Glenn Field. San Marco is P2, 0.4 seconds behind Eric Bone. San Marco entering the pits after 6 laps on softs is P3. John Astrup is P12. Glenn Field is P3 on mediums, 0.8 seconds ahead of Dara Atkinson. Eric Bone is P1, 0.5 seconds ahead of Daniel Hahn. David Forsyth is P6, 4.4 seconds behind Brian Patterson. Daniel Hahn from Germany is P2, 0.3 seconds behind Eric Bone. Eric Bone is P1, 0.4 seconds ahead of Daniel Hahn. Dara Atkinson is P4, 0.3 seconds behind Glenn Field. Daniel Hand is P2, 0.3 seconds behind Eric Bohm. Eric Bohm from Germany is P1, 0.3 seconds ahead of Daniel Hand. John Astrup entering the pits after 4 laps on mediums is P12. John Astrup is P12. Best lap is a 2:01.338. 2.693 off the fastest lap. Rene Robertson is P11. Glenn Field is P3, 2.3 seconds behind Dara Atkinson. Daniel Hand is P2, 0.2 seconds behind Eric Bohm. Eric Bohm is P1, 0.1 seconds ahead of Daniel Hand. The leader has just finished the race. Eric Bohm finished P1. Daniel Hand finished P2. Dara Atkinson is P4. Dara Atkinson finished P4. Glenn Field finished P3. Brian Patterson is P5. Brian Patterson finished P5. David Forsyth finished P6. Rene Robertson finished P11. Alex Amara is P8. Alex Amara finished P8. Mark Scott finished P9. Richard Ogden finished P10. John Astrup finished P12. Alex Amara finished P8. Richard Ogden finished P10. Eric Bohm finished P1. John Astrup finished P12. Emanuele Rusciusa from Italy is P13. Eric Bohm finished P1. Immanuel Russia user is P13. Eric Bohm finished P1. Immanuel Russia user is P13. Eric Bohm finished P1. David Forsyth finished P6. Eric Bohm finished P1. David Forsyth finished P6. Eric Bohm finished P1. David Forsyth from Ireland finished P6. Eric Bohm finished P1. The race session is at Sebring International Raceway in Sebring FL, USA. John Astrup from New Zealand is P1 with 10 kilos on softs. Richard Ogden is P2 on hards. Rene Robertson is P3 with 40 kilos on mediums. Mark Scott from Norway is P4 on softs. Alex Amara from Ireland is P5 on softs. David Forsyth from Ireland is P6 on mediums. Brian Patterson is P7 on softs. Glenn Field from United Kingdom is P8 on mediums. Dara Atkinson from Ireland is P9 on mediums. Daniel Handke from Germany is P10 on softs. Eric Bohm from Germany is P11 with 80 kilos on softs. Sam Markham from Zimbabwe is P12 with 100 kilos on softs. Emmanuel Rusciusa from Italy is P13 on mediums. David Kelsall is P14 on mediums. John Astrup is P1 on mediums. 30 minutes remaining in the session. Race start. Alex Amara is P5. Rene Robertson is P3. Alex Amara is P3. Brian Patterson is P2. Dara Atkinson entering the pits is P13. David Forsyth is P7. Sam Markham is P3. Emmanuel Rusciusa is P8. David Kelsall is P5. Rene Robertson entering the pits is P14. Sam Markham is P2. The race session is at Sebring International Raceway in Sebring FL, USA. Sam Markham from Zimbabwe is P10 with 100 kilos on softs. Daniel Handke from Germany is P1 on softs. Dara Atkinson from Ireland is P3 on mediums. Glenn Field from United Kingdom is P4 on mediums. Brian Patterson is P5 on softs. David Forsyth from Ireland is P6 on mediums. Alex Amara from Ireland is P7 on softs. Mark Scott from Norway is P8 on softs. Rene Robertson is P9 with 40 kilos on mediums. Richard Ogden is P10 on hards. Sam Markham is P11. John Astrup from New Zealand is P12 with 10 kilos on mediums. Emmanuel Rusciusa from Italy is P13 on mediums. David Kelsall is P14 on mediums. Eric Bohm from Germany is P1 with 80 kilos on softs. "30 minutes remaining in the session. Daniel Handke is P2. Race start. Alex Amara is P5. Dara Atkinson is P2. David Forsyth is P7. John Astrup is P8. David Kelsall is P5. Daniel Handke is P9. Sam Markham is P13. Richard Ogden is P4. John Astrup is P8. David Kelsall is P5. Daniel Handke is P9. Rene Robertson is P3. David Kelsall is P7. Rene Robertson is P3. Richard Ogden entering the pits is P13. David Kelsall is P5, 0.1 seconds behind Mark Scott. Best lap is a 2:27.682. 6.857 of the fastest lap. Rene Robertson is P3, 0.2 seconds behind Emmanuel Rusciusa. Daniel Handke is P5, 0.3 seconds behind Mark Scott. Rene Robertson is P3, 0.5 seconds behind Emmanuel Rusciusa. Mark Scott is P5 on softs, 0.4 seconds behind Daniel Handke. David Kelsall is P7, 0.2 seconds behind San Marco. Glenn Field is P10, 0.3 seconds behind Alex Amara. John Astrup is P8 with 10 kilos, 0.2 seconds ahead of Alex Amaro. Mark Scott entering the pits after 2 laps on softs is P13. Rene Robertson is P3, 0.5 seconds behind Emmanuel Russia. David Kelsall is P8, 0.4 seconds behind John Astrup. Rene Robertson is P3, 0.4 seconds behind Emmanuel Russia. Best lap is a 2:24.334. 3.509 of the fastest lap. Glenfield is P10 on mediums battling Dara Atkinson. Rene Robertson is P3 with 40 kilos, 0.1 seconds behind Emmanuel Russia. Dara Atkinson is P10 on mediums, 0.4 seconds ahead of John Astrup. Emmanuel Russia on lap 3 is P3, 0.1 seconds behind Rene Robertson. 25 minutes remaining in the session. Glenfield is P8, 0.1 seconds behind Alex Amaro. Emmanuel Russia is P3, 0.1 seconds ahead of Daniel Hahn. Alex Amaro from Ireland is P9 battling Dara Atkinson. Daniel Hahn is P4, 0.5 seconds behind Emmanuel Russia. David Kelsall entering the pits after 3 laps on mediums is P12. Alex Amaro is P9, 0.1 seconds behind Dara Atkinson. Daniel Hahn is P4, 0.3 seconds behind Emmanuel Russia. Alex Amaro is P9 battling Dara Atkinson. San Marco is P5 with 100 kilos, 0.5 seconds behind Emmanuel Russia. Alex Amaro from Ireland is P9, 0.3 seconds behind Dara Atkinson. San Marco is P5, 0.3 seconds ahead of Eric Bohm. Dara Atkinson from Ireland is P8, 0.2 seconds behind Alex Amaro. Daniel Hahn is P3, 0.2 seconds behind Rene Robertson. Glenfield from United Kingdom is P11. Rene Robertson is P3, 0.3 seconds behind Daniel Hahn. Dara Atkinson from Ireland is P8, 0.1 seconds behind Alex Amaro. Rene Robertson is P3, 0.5 seconds behind Daniel Hahn. John Astrup is P8, 0.3 seconds behind Dara Atkinson. Eric Bohm is P5 with 80 kilos, 0.1 seconds behind San Marco. Dara Atkinson on lap 4 is P7, 0.5 seconds ahead of John Astrup. San Marco is P5, 0.5 seconds behind Eric Bone. Best lap is a 1:59.926. 0.841 of the fastest lap. Eric Bone is P4, 0.5 seconds ahead of San Marco. Glenfield entering the pits after 4 laps on mediums is P11. Glenfield is P11. John Astrup is P8, 0.6 seconds behind Dara Atkinson. Daniel Hank is P2, 0.3 seconds behind Brian Patterson. San Marco is P5 with 100 kilos, 0.3 seconds behind Eric Bone. 20 minutes remaining in the session. Daniel Hank is P2, 0.3 seconds behind Brian Patterson. Brian Patterson is P2, 0.2 seconds behind Daniel Hank. San Marco is P5, 0.3 seconds behind Eric Bone. Brian Patterson is P2, 0.5 seconds behind Daniel Hank. San Marco is P5 with 100 kilos, 0.3 seconds behind Eric Bone. Eric Bone on lap 6 is P5. John Astrup is P8 with 10 kilos, 0.4 seconds behind Dara Atkinson. Dara Atkinson is P7, 0.5 seconds ahead of John Astrup. Brian Patterson on lap 6 is P2, 0.7 seconds ahead of Rene Robertson. Dara Atkinson is P7, 0.6 seconds ahead of John Astrup. Brian Patterson is P2, 0.7 seconds ahead of Rene Robertson. Daniel Hank on lap 7 is P1, 3.3 seconds ahead of Brian Patterson. Rene Robertson is P3, 0.1 seconds behind Brian Patterson. Dara Atkinson from Ireland is P7, 0.6 seconds ahead of John Astrup. Rene Robertson is P3 with 40 kilos, 0.4 seconds behind Brian Patterson. Dara Atkinson is P7, 0.4 seconds ahead of John Astrup. Rene Robertson is P3, 0.3 seconds behind Brian Patterson. Dara Atkinson is P7, 0.4 seconds ahead of John Astrup. Rene Robertson is P3, 0.4 seconds behind Brian Patterson. Eric Bone is P7, 0.3 seconds behind Dara Atkinson. Best lap is a 1:59.743. 0.658 of the fastest lap. "15 minutes remaining in the session. Dara Atkinson is P6, 0.4 seconds ahead of Eric Bone. John Astrup is P8 with 10 kilos, 0.3 seconds behind Eric Bone. Eric Bone is P7, 0.2 seconds ahead of John Astrup. Brian Patterson is P5, 0.7 seconds ahead of Dara Atkinson. Best lap is a 2:00.792. 1.707 of the fastest lap. Eric Bone is P6 on softs, 0.3 seconds behind Dara Atkinson. Brian Patterson entering the pits after 8 laps on softs is P9. San Marcom entering the pits after 8 laps on softs is P3. San Marcom from Zimbabwe is P3, 3.3 seconds behind Rene Robertson. John Astrup is P6, 0.8 seconds behind Eric Bone. San Marcom is P4, 2.7 seconds behind Emmanuel Rishiuza. Eric Bone is P5 battling John Astrup. Daniel Handke is P1 on softs. John Astrup is P5, 0.1 seconds behind Eric Bone. Alex Amaro entering the pits after 8 laps on softs is P9. Eric Bone is P4, 0.4 seconds ahead of John Astrup. Alex Amaro is P9. John Astrup is P5, 0.4 seconds behind Eric Bone. Daniel Handke is P1. Daniel Handke entering the pits after 9 laps on softs is P1. John Astrup is P5 with 10 kilos, 0.2 seconds behind Eric Bone. Daniel Hank is P2. John Astrup on lap 9 is P5, 0.3 seconds behind Eric Bohm. Emmanuel Russia user entering the pits after 9 laps on mediums is P3. Eric Bohm entering the pits after 9 laps on softs is P4. Emmanuel Russia user is P3, 2.1 seconds ahead of John Astrup. John Astrup is P3 on mediums. Emmanuel Russia user is P8, 1.6 seconds behind David Forsyth. Eric Bohm is P8, 4.7 seconds behind Emmanuel Russia user. Alex Amara is P9. Best lap is a 2:04.291. 5.206 off the fastest lap. Eric Bohm is P8. 10 minutes remaining in the session. Dara Atkinson from Ireland is P4, 1.7 seconds behind Daniel Hank. Alex Amara is P9. Dara Atkinson is P4, 1.5 seconds ahead of San Marco. Dara Atkinson entering the pits after 10 laps on mediums is P4. John Astrup is P2, 1.6 seconds ahead of Daniel Hank. Dara Atkinson is P6 on softs, 1.3 seconds ahead of Emmanuel Russia user. Daniel Hank is P3, 1.2 seconds behind John Astrup. Eric Bohm is P7 with 80 kilos, 4.0 seconds behind Emmanuel Russia user. Daniel Hank is P3, 0.7 seconds behind John Astrup. Best lap is a 1:59.085. Alex Amara is P9. John Astrup entering the pits after 11 laps on mediums is P3. John Astrup from New Zealand is P3, 3.1 seconds behind Daniel Hank. Rene Robertson is P1. John Astrup from New Zealand is P4. Rene Robertson is P1. David Forsyth entering the pits after 11 laps on mediums is P5. David Forsyth is P5. John Astrup is P4, 1.0 seconds ahead of Emmanuel Russia user. David Forsyth is P8 on softs. Best lap is a 2:03.303. 4.218 of the fastest lap. Eric Bohm is P5, 2.4 seconds behind Emmanuel Richard. David Forsyth is P8. Eric Bohm is P5 on softs, 1.7 seconds behind Emmanuel Richard. Rene Robertson entering the pits after 12 laps on mediums is P1. Rene Robertson is P1. John Astrup is P6. Rene Robertson is P1. 5 minutes remaining in the session. John Astrup entering the pits is P6. Eric Bohm is P5, 0.5 seconds behind Emmanuel Richard. San Markham from Zimbabwe is P3, 0.1 seconds behind Rene Robertson. Eric Bohm is P5, 0.3 seconds behind Emmanuel Richard. San Markham on lap 13 is P3, 0.1 seconds behind Rene Robertson. David Forsyth is P7. Emmanuel Richard is P5, 0.4 seconds behind Eric Bohm. Eric Bohm is P4, 0.6 seconds ahead of Emmanuel Richard. San Markham from Zimbabwe is P2, 0.5 seconds ahead of Rene Robertson. Rene Robertson entering the pits after 2 laps on mediums is P3. Emmanuel Richard from Italy is P5, 0.2 seconds behind Eric Bohm. Eric Bohm is P4, 0.7 seconds ahead of Emmanuel Richard. Emmanuel Richard is P5, 0.4 seconds behind Eric Bohm. Eric Bohm is P4 with 80 kilos, 1.3 seconds ahead of Emmanuel Richard. David Forsyth is P7. Eric Bohm is P4, 1.4 seconds ahead of Emmanuel Russia. Alex Amara is P8. Eric Bohm is P4, 0.7 seconds ahead of Emmanuel Russia. Emmanuel Russia is P5, 1.3 seconds behind Eric Bohm. Eric Bohm from Germany is P4. Dara Atkinson is P6, 1.7 seconds behind Emmanuel Russia. David Forsyth is P7. Rene Robertson is P3. Dara Atkinson is P7, 0.3 seconds behind Emmanuel Russia. Alex Amara on lap 15 is P4. Dara Atkinson is P6, 0.8 seconds ahead of Emmanuel Russia. Eric Bohm from Germany is P4. Alex Amara is P7. Daniel Hank is P1. The leader has just finished the race. Daniel Hank finished P1. Sam Markham finished P2. Rene Robertson finished P3. Eric Bohm is P4. Eric Bohm finished P4. Dara Atkinson finished P5. Emmanuel Rushiusa finished P6. David Forsyth from Ireland is P8. David Forsyth finished P8. Alex Amara is P7. Alex Amara from Ireland finished P7. Emmanuel Rushiusa finished P6. Rene Robertson finished P3. David Forsyth from Ireland finished P8. Rene Robertson finished P3. Rene Robertson finished P3. Dara Atkinson finished P5. The race session is at Sebring International Raceway in Sebring, FL, USA. 10 minutes remaining in the session. 15 minutes remaining in the session.